So, let's first clear up all this confusion regarding the square root. So, whenever you have just a square root on its own, you're talking about the principal square root. So, that basically just means the positive part. So, when I have just the square root of 4, the principal square root of 4, I mean 2. Principal square root of 9, 3. Now, when I say plus or minus the square root of 16, I really mean plus or minus 4. So, plus 4 or minus 4 is the answer to that question. They both work. So, you can think about it this way. Whenever you're solving a quadratic equation, you're going to always need to put that plus or minus sign, right? Because, let's say in this case, you know that x can either be plus 1 or minus 1. Now notice how equivalently you could also put it on the left-hand side of the equation, but just nobody does that because you're trying to get x on its own, not plus or minus x on its own, even though this is completely true. Your answer is meant to be left in the form of this, so don't do that. And the third bullet point here basically just means you might be very exhausted after a long algebraic manipulation and might just forget to include the plus or minus sign. Now, you might think, okay, there's no way I'm going to forget that, right? But trust me, under exam pressure, I've seen many people do many things. One more thing I forgot to go over before. Let's use the completed square form and let's do an example with that. So let's say this is our quadratic after we've completed the square. Now we want to shift 48 to the other side. So we say this. Divide both sides by 3 and we get 16. Now I told you, when dealing with quadratics, when square rooting, you have to have the plus or minus on one of the sides. So let's do that. This is actually this, which is then plus or minus 4. Is equal to 10 plus or minus 4. Now the reason another way you can think about it is, let's say x minus 10 is another thing on its own. So we know that that thing squared is equal to 16. So obviously the thing inside must be either plus 4 or minus 4. So we say this. Now, remembering what we called that blob in the first place, then we have this. And then finally we arrive at our answer. That's another nicer way of thinking about it, in my opinion. Now make sure you stick around for the second part of the series because I'm going to be going over the single biggest quadratic hack.